Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. On the subject of Cartesian theist, I'm going to be pretty quick about this. I had a lot of material prepared, but Dorpatan has done a very good refutation and pointed out just about as much as I could. I had a few things I was going to expand on, so I'm going to mention a couple things and then give a quote from Alexander Pope. And then we will be done with Cartesian theist, I'm afraid. I'm afraid we will be done with him, ladies and gentlemen. Now, to start off, Cartesian theist, in his video, Beware of Bad Philosophy. Ha! Good Lord. He plays a clip of me talking, then a clip of Dorpatan, and then a clip of Student of Objectivism, or Danny Dandanikins. And when he started saying this, he said, oh, these three contradict each other. I thought, oh, this is going to be embarrassing. I'm going to have to go publicly correct some other objectivist. I'm going to have to make a video explaining some point that one of them may have gotten wrong. But as I listened to the clips, no, we were all consistent. We all have the tenets of objectivism. There was nothing inconsistent. In fact, the clips were on disparate subjects, and I was strained to find a connection. But I think the connection is probably very obvious to Cartesian theist, because he's got this, all these extra conduits in his mind carrying information back and forth, which objectivists would call invalid concepts. We would ignore those. That's wasted thought calories to play around with those, and it seems that that's most of what he does. Well, he mentions also my a priori, my definition of a priori as information before the senses are taken into account. He hashes on this for about 3 or 4 minutes, and Dorpatan points this out nicely. But I just wanted to mention two things about this. First of all, at the end of his hashing it out, he says, at the end of Cartesian theist hashing this out, Cartesian theist then says, Mr. Cropper has used a non-standard definition, blah, blah, blah. So he goes through all that and says I used a non-standard definition. Not very bright of him. But I did more than use a non-standard definition. I used what an objectivist would have to consider to be the essentially correct definition. And you should look at the Analytic-Synthetic Dichotomy by Leonard Peikoff. It is addended to Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology by Ayn Rand in this copy, not in every copy, but in this one here. The Analytic-Synthetic Dichotomy is an excellent piece, from page 92. Analytic truths are necessary, no matter what region of space or time, or what period one considers such propositions must hold true, such as bachelors or unmarried men. Triangles have 3 corners. Indeed, they are said to be true not only throughout the universe which actually exists, but in all possible worlds. To use Leibniz's famous phrase. Since its denial is self-contradictory, the opposite of an analytic truth is unimaginable and inconceivable. Can you indeed imagine a 4-cornered triangle? A visitor from an alien planet might relate any unexpected marvel, but his claims would be rejected out of hand if he announced that in his world ice was a gas, man was a postage stamp, and 2 plus 2 equaled 7.3. Synthetic truths, however, are declared not to be necessary. They are called contingent. This means, as a matter of fact, in the actual world that men now observe, such propositions happen to be true, but they do not have to be true. They are not true in all possible worlds. So you could imagine a synthetic truth not being true. Now, the example he gives is a man having a dozen eyes, or an eye in the back of his head, a baker's dozen of such eyes. You could imagine a man with eyes in the back of his head or whatever. You can't imagine a 4-cornered triangle. Now, here is the meaning of a priori that I was getting at. Quote, since analytic propositions are logically true, and remember, I pause for a moment, remember, ladies and gentlemen, logic is a concept derived from reality. So to use logic to talk about before or outside of or divorced from reality is a bizarre confusion of Platonists. But to continue, since analytic propositions are logically true, they can, it is claimed, be validated independently of experience. You don't need to take account of experience in order to talk about whether this is true or not. That's an a priori truth. Independently of experience. They are, quote, they are non-empirical or a priori. Today these terms mean independent of experience. Now, what is independent of experience? Without experience being taken into account. Okay, it's not a big deal, but for those of you that are interested in what Cartesian Theist was picking up on or trying to pick up on there, that's where objectivists and people with their heads on slightly straighter can go for a little more information about what that whole thing was about. Ridiculous. It was a red herring, well described as a red herring by Dorpatan, and there are many other follies in his video. But there's a couple of quotes. There are a couple of quotes. There is a couple of quotes, which I will now read from Alexander Pope's essay on man, from his essay on criticism. Now, concerning first of all the nonsense that the red herring, for example, that Cartesian Theist indulges in, and his laundry list he had at the end of his other video where he just put up like 18 different things that he said Mr. Cropper failed to address, like the compelling evidence for the life of Jesus was one of them, and how the universe is fine-tuned was another one, and just a laundry list of stuff. Well, concerning that, words are like leaves, and where they most abound, much fruit of sense beneath is rarely found. He's hiding the fact that his fruit tree is naked of real fruit, ladies and gentlemen, by just throwing a billion leaves out there, and tries to make it look like he's got a very nice full tree, when in fact there's nothing worth eating on that tree. Now we skip down a number of paragraphs to his third section of the poem. "'Tis best sometimes your censure to retain, and charitably let the dole be vain. Your silence there is better than your spite, for who can rail so long as they can write?" So, ladies and gentlemen, my silence will have to be better than my spite, because Dorpatan beat me to making the video, and it's a very good reply. And additionally, that's a great quote from Alexander Pope, and we'll just have to let it be there. We will let the dole be vain. Who can rail so long as they can write or make inane, ridiculous videos full of absolute logic salad nonsense that then us objectivists have to try to straighten out in some way so that people aren't so fooled by it, but who can rail so long as they can write?